Welcome back to the English Nook, Language Connoisseurs. I'm Maya.
And I'm Ethan. It is an absolute pleasure to have you back with us as we open up a highly requested, incredibly dynamic masterclass in our C1 Advanced curriculum.
Today we are diving into a territory that causes an immense amount of psychological anxiety for advanced speakers. The complex, often chaotic world of linguistic divergence between British and American English.
Linguistic divergence. Leave it to you, Maya, to make a video about slang sound like a university dissertation. But she is entirely correct. For a B1 or B2 learner, changing between British and American words is just a fun vocabulary game. But at the C1 level, when you are operating in executive boardrooms, academic fields, or high-level social circles, a regional mix-up can completely alter your linguistic register.
Oh, completely! It can shift your tone from highly professional to unintentionally crude or bizarre in a fraction of a second. Advanced learners often assume that because they have mastered complex grammar, they are immune to these regional traps. But the reality is that the identical word can carry completely disparate connotations depending on which side of the Atlantic you are standing on.
Exactly. A disparate connotation means the meanings are fundamentally different, completely unequal, and distinct. Today, Maya and I want to look past the basic examples like cookie versus biscuit. We want to look at the words that cause genuine, embarrassing cultural friction.
Let's start with a classic example that almost every international professional trips over. The word pants. Now, Ethan, if a senior executive in New York tells you, "I love your pants, where did you get them?" How do you react?
I say thank you. In America, pants is the standard, completely appropriate professional term for your trousers. It's what you wear over your legs to a business meeting.
Right. But if you say that exact same sentence to a colleague in a corporate office in London, you have just crossed a massive boundary. In British English, pants refers exclusively to your underwear. The actual garment is called trousers. So if you tell a British client you love their pants, you aren't being complimentary. You are being aggressively inappropriate.
Oh wow, that is an absolute nightmare scenario for an executive. You think you are building corporate rapport, but you are actually commenting on their undergarments. That is the exact type of sociolinguistic friction that advanced speakers need to actively anticipate.
It really is. It's about understanding the subtle, unspoken cultural boundaries embedded within the vocabulary. And throughout this multi-part episode, Ethan and I are going to run through a series of high-stakes comparisons, covering professional interactions, social gatherings, and emotional expressions, to ensure your advanced speech remains completely flawless.
As always, we will tie this all together with our signature word tour at the very end of our session, where we will isolate, define, and analyze 5 premium C1 linguistic terms utilized naturally in our banter today.
If you are ready to master the nuances of dialectal variation and protect your professional image, please take a momentary pause to interact with that like mechanism and subscribe to the Nook channel.
All right, Maya, the gauntlet has been thrown down. Let's move past the office wardrobe and look at how a single word describing your mood or emotion can completely distort your meaning across regional lines.
Welcome back. Now, right before the transition, Ethan, we hinted at how expressing your emotional state can go completely off the rails due to regional dialect differences. For a C1 speaker, mastering emotional nuance is crucial. But certain everyday adjectives carry an entirely subversive meaning, depending on who you are talking to.
Subversive? That's an excellent word choice, Maya. It means something that completely undermines or flips the expected meaning or structure. And nothing is more subversive in English than the word mad. If I tell you, "Wow, Maya, our client is completely mad," what does that mean to my American brain?
To an American, it means the client is absolutely furious, angry, or irritated. But in British English, mad doesn't inherently imply anger at all. It implies insanity or eccentricity. If you tell a British team member that a client is mad, they won't think the client is upset. They will think the client has completely lost their mind and needs psychological evaluation.
Right. You are describing an angry email, but they think you are questioning the client's sanity. But let's look at the absolute king of embarrassing emotional mix-ups, which is the phrase, pissed. In the United States, if an employee says, "I'm so pissed about that decision," it is a relatively common, slightly casual way of saying they are very angry or annoyed.
But if you say, I'm pissed in the UK, Australia, or New Zealand, it has absolutely nothing to do with anger. It means you are completely, utterly intoxicated. You've had 5 pints of beer at the pub, and you cannot walk straight.
Oh man. So if an advanced international professional walks into a high-level corporate meeting in London after a stressful morning and says, "I apologize if I look exhausted. I am just so pissed right now," what happens?
The HR department gets involved immediately. They think you've shown up to work completely drunk at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. It is a complete disaster for your professional credibility. The linguistic ambiguity there creates a massive corporate liability.
That is incredible. Ambiguity, meaning the quality of being open to more than one interpretation. It is the ultimate enemy of C1 precision. To communicate effectively at this level, you can't just memorize definitions. You have to understand the regional threshold for what is considered casual versus what is considered completely inappropriate or vulgar.
Absolutely. And this regional divide doesn't just apply to individual words. It applies heavily to how we structure praise and criticism. In our next section, we need to look at how British understatement can completely mask a severe critique, while American enthusiasm can sometimes be entirely misunderstood.
Ah, the art of the indirect insult. That is where sociolinguistic mastery truly shines. Let's break down the hidden codes of regional feedback.
Let's confront the harsh professional reality of this dynamic, Ethan. The true danger of linguistic divergence at a C1 level isn't just about making a funny mistake with vocabulary words like pants or pissed. The real corporate liability lies in how we interpret nuance during high-stakes evaluations and performance feedback.
Oh, you are hitting on something massive here, Maya. This is where cross-cultural communication either thrives or completely breaks down. American corporate culture is historically built on enthusiasm and hyperbole. If an American manager looks at a project and says, "That's quite good," they actually mean it's mediocre, uninspiring, or needs a total rewrite.
Exactly. Because to an American ear, quiet acts as a modifier that diminishes the strength of the adjective. But if a British executive looks at your proposal and tells you it is quite good, you should celebrate. In British English, quite good often functions as a high compliment, meaning something is thoroughly impressive, exceptional, or up to standard.
It is a total paradox, isn't it? If an advanced speaker doesn't understand that subtle regional shift, they might leave a meeting feeling completely devastated by a British boss, or overly confident after talking to an American colleague, completely misreading the actual performance evaluation.
It creates an incredibly treacherous corporate landscape. British professional communication relies heavily on extreme understatement and coded politeness to deliver criticism. If a British colleague reviews your work and tells you, "With greatest respect, I have a few minor queries about this section," what they are actually saying is, "You are completely wrong. Your data is inaccurate, and you need to redo this immediately."
Wow, that is brutal. Whereas in the US, we tend to be slightly more direct with our critiques, but we wrap them in a compliment sandwich. We tell you what we love first, then give the critique, and end with encouragement. An international professional operating at a C1 level has to actively cultivate sociolinguistic sensitivity to decode these hidden messages.
Absolutely. It is about moving beyond literal translation and entering the realm of cultural psychology. You aren't just analyzing the syntax, you are interpreting the unwritten social contract of the region.
It really redefines what it means to be truly fluent. It moves you from a competent speaker to a highly sophisticated global diplomat. But navigating this feedback style is only one part of the equation. Next, we need to address how these regional divides affect our daily, casual interactions, and how something as simple as inviting someone to lunch can cause complete confusion.
Ah, the hidden traps of everyday casual planning. Let's break down the practical conversational shifts in our next section.
Let's pivot straight into the practical mechanics of this, Maya. We have deconstructed emotional boundaries and decoded the unwritten rules of corporate feedback. But there is a final, daily obstacle that can completely derail a C1 speaker's schedule: time and planning vocabulary. If you are scheduling a global meeting and a British colleague asks to move a presentation forward or back, you are entering a linguistic minefield.
Oh, that specific dynamic causes an unbelievable amount of operational chaos, Ethan. If an American says, let's move the meeting forward, they almost always mean moving it to an earlier date or time. But in many international and British contexts, moving a meeting forward can occasionally be interpreted as pushing it further into the future. The chronological orientation of the phrases can be entirely inverted depending on local custom.
It is a recipe for absolute logistical disaster. You show up on Tuesday and your team thinks the meeting is on Thursday. This is why a C1 communicator must actively practice what I call dialectal alignment. You cannot just rely on casual idioms when precise coordination is on the line. You must explicitly clarify the exact parameters of your communication to eliminate any hidden structural ambiguity.
Exactly. And to achieve that level of precision, an advanced learner has to make a definitive strategic choice. You need to decide whether you are going to adopt a consistent American framework, a consistent British framework, or a highly deliberate mid-Atlantic hybrid approach. Trying to blindly mix slang from both regions in a single breath doesn't make you sound native-like. It makes your linguistic profile sound fragmented and unfocused.
Spot on, Maya. It completely erodes the sophistication of your delivery. If you are using sharp American business idioms, don't suddenly drop a highly colloquial British term like flat or mate into the exact same sentence. Pick a clear regional baseline for your professional persona, master its subtle boundaries, and use the alternative dialect as a tool for passive comprehension rather than active imitation.
Beautifully stated, Ethan. True C1 mastery isn't about perfectly mimicking every single accent on the planet. It is about understanding the global landscape so deeply that you can navigate any environment with absolute confidence, sensitivity, and professional poise.
It completely changes how you carry yourself in international spaces. It transforms language from a potential barrier into a powerful tool for global diplomacy.
I couldn't agree more, Ethan. When you master these structural differences, you aren't just memorizing vocabulary, you are actively developing a global executive mindset.
Now that we have mapped out the strategic frameworks to navigate regional dialects without causing corporate friction, let's navigate directly into the word tour to isolate and solidify the advanced linguistic terms we used naturally during today's session.
And that brings us to the final chapter of today's masterclass, the word tour. Today, we deconstructed the hidden boundaries of regional dialects. Let's isolate 5 premium C1 advanced expressions from our discussion that will bring immediate precision to your spoken English.
These terms are absolutely indispensable for analyzing communication habits, cultural psychology, and professional development. Let's dissect them.
Our first concept is the noun phrase, linguistic divergence. This refers to the process where a single language branches off into separate dialects or variations over time, creating differences in vocabulary, pronunciation, and meaning. For example, the linguistic divergence between British and American English can create unexpected confusion in international business settings.
Word number 2 is the adjective, disparate.
Fundamentally distinct, completely unequal, or entirely different in kind.
For example, the 2 regional teams held completely disparate views on how to manage the product launch.
Word number 3 is the adjective, subversive.
Something that completely undermines, flips, or challenges an established system, expected meaning, or traditional structure.
For example, The comedian used a highly subversive style of humor that completely overturned the audience's expectations.
Our fourth item is the noun, ambiguity.
The quality of being open to more than one interpretation, or a lack of absolute clarity.
For example, to avoid any scheduling ambiguity, please specify the exact date and time zone in the invitation.
And finally, word number 5 is the noun phrase sociolinguistic sensitivity.
The advanced ability to recognize, understand, and adapt to the subtle social and cultural rules that govern language choices in different environments.
For example, developing sociolinguistic sensitivity is crucial for global diplomats working across international borders.
A truly elegant set of vocabulary to help you articulate the nuances of human communication and psychological alignment. Now, before we conclude, we are inviting our advanced cohort to engage with us directly.
Your challenge today is incredibly straightforward. Scan our vocabulary list. Select one word or phrase, whether it's linguistic divergence, ambiguity, or sociolinguistic sensitivity, and craft just one original sentence using it in the comments below.
That's it. Just a single sentence to transform passive knowledge into an active skill. Maya and I will be personally auditing the comment section to review your prose and offer professional feedback.
If this discussion challenged your perspective and helped you look at your practice through a sharper lens, please activate the like mechanism and subscribe to the channel. Your interaction directly sustains the Nook.
Thank you for your intellectual curiosity, your focus, and your time today.
Step outside your linguistic safety net. Choose your baseline dialect deliberately. And we will see you back at the Nook for our next advanced analysis.
Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.